Welcome back to another episode of Stormwater Creek. We are once again pumped. I feel like we've had a couple cool guests in a row, with Chef Jean Paul Bourgeois, and now we are joined by the duck hunting, kind of the master duck hunter here. His name is Ramsey Russell from Get Ducks Out. Boy, I'll try that again. GetDucks.com. Man, I appreciate you joining us. Thanks for being on the podcast.
No, I'm glad to be here, and I've got enough cool friends like Chef John Paul to know I ain't cool. But thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I don't know, man. We were watching a bunch of videos, and you've gotten to hunt all over the place, and so I think the big question we kind of had was to just kind of start from the very beginning. And how'd you even get into duck hunting in the first place?
Wow, that's a great story because I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, which is duck hunting for Mississippi, and I really didn't grow up duck hunting. My dad grew up duck hunting, but he didn't duck hunt when he got older. My grandfather did, but he got out of it. His health failed him before I went, and he was that generation. You think about all the folks listening today. As soon as your kid gets potty trained, you want to take them out to the duck blind, but those older guys weren't like that. I mean, duck camp was where they went to get away from
women and
stuff.
children.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a grown up environment. I think if his health had hung out about another 3 or 4 years, I'd have grown up to age to go to duck camp with him, and I did not. But I grew up around the stories, and I think the stories is what compelled me the most. And actually, in a roundabout way, I found myself at Mississippi State in wildlife management and wanted to be in deer. I wanted to study deer. I wanted to be a deer biologist, all that good stuff. I went down to South Texas. I mean, way down up against the Mexican border, like 107,000 acres free range, owned by a couple of Texas oil barons, managed by one of the foremost whitetail deer biologists. I was his co-op student. And I was on my way to being a deer biologist. Some of the things I saw in the right tutelage, and something strange happened. Shooting antlerless deer and doing deer habitat work was a job description. And from about Thanksgiving on, every time the wind blew from the north, all those stock tanks and little water holes would fill up with ducks. And that just that was a recreation, and something snapped. It just, it got back in touch with my roots, and I couldn't get enough of it. But I was 18, 19 years old before that happened. The first duck I shot, I was deer hunting in a part of Mississippi that's not really renowned for ducks. I was actually deer hunting one day, and it got dark, started getting dark, and every wood duck in the world started flying at eyeball level, landing back behind me in the swamp. The next day I was there with a shotgun. Did not kill a wood duck. I pulled the trigger one time after legal shooting hours, I'm afraid, and killed a pair of mallards. And
Oh, wow.
that just kind of sent me down the trail. You know what I'm saying? I was a grown man. I was in my early 20s when I learned to call ducks. And I was actually at Mississippi State University and went with a fraternity brother to Arkansas. And we went into public woods. The patriarch, the head honcho of the group, had been hunting those woods since he was a child himself. And get this, the limit was 2 mallards.
2 mallards.
2 mallards. We was in a very restrictive season. And those ducks came through the treetops and landed in front of us, and that was all she wrote. I never have forgotten it before or since. And the rest is history. One step after the next. You know what I'm saying? You're going to eat a whole elephant, you got to eat them a bite at a time,
No doubt. Well, that's crazy. Yeah, I think I'm kind of shared the same way. I was big into deer hunting and then got into the duck thing, and it's been a sickness ever since then for sure. So,
do you still do some deer hunting?
Yeah, I do. And it was, I really, the part of the job description, I deer hunted and shot so many deer, numbers I won't say in public. Back in the day, and this was, gosh, it's close to 30 years ago, that I really did not deer hunt much after that. And I guess I was looking for something else. And And then the pendulum swung a lot of different directions. I found myself way into duck hunting, way into deer, duck hunting, and deer hunting just kind of came back to me natural. Going out with kids. Kids are the children spell love TIME. I've said that a million times, but being able to go back out. Um, Gosh, I grew up in the Delta, man. We fished, but I had not fished in years, many years since college. When I had my first child, he was 2 years old, and I took him out to a buddy's pier. We're catching bluegills, and to experience that again at his level. And I guess I could explain, the next 20 years of raising children, getting to see duck hunting from their perspective, getting to see fishing from their perspective, getting to go deer hunting from their perspective. That may probably had as much to do with it as dragging me back into it. But, I duck hunt for a living. That's the truth. We founded getducks.com 20 years ago. Next July, 20 years we've been doing this. And it's really, you can't, as transparent as social media is, you've got to put your boots on the ground and meet those people and look at more than just the ducks on the straps. You've got to really get deep in the bushes to fully understand who you are representing to the clients. And I learned that the hard way. I went on a very, very bad hunt right after college. I've described it before, but you've got to do that. And that necessitates, as you get this far along into it, spending a lot of time in the field, a lot of time away from home. And my clients, and we've got a lot of clients in a calendar year, because it truly is duck season somewhere, 365 days a year. It's waterfowl season. And they duck hunt for vacation.
Yeah.
And I really and truly, I was asked one time at a public forum, well, where's your favorite place to go? What do you do for vacation? I said, you don't want to hear that. It'll bore you. And they go, no. I said, I want to eat and drink, possibly fornicate, but I don't want to wear waders and shoot a shotgun.
Yeah.
And that's really the truth. And I love the duck hunt. I love it for so many different reasons now than what I loved it then. But to go out and deer hunt, I'm not a trophy hunter. I am not. If I shoot a big buck, it's because he came down the trail first. I'm just not that guy. No matter where on earth I hunt big game. And really, I tell you, we did a couple of podcast episodes ourselves on duck season somewhere about a local folk hero from Mississippi Delta, my home ground, my home county, named Holt Collier, a slave that became a Civil War hero, that became a market hunter, killing bears in the Delta, that eventually took Teddy Roosevelt hunting. And that's how the teddy bear came to be. He buried just a quarter mile from where I grew up and in Greenville. And just something about that story, his story, the fact that back in those days, he was getting $60 for a bear and $6 for a deer, made me start wondering about bears. So for the last few years, I've been going out to North Carolina and hunting with friends and shooting bears, not big bears, just bears, meat bears.
Sure.
And there's so little I know about a black bear that has kind of intrigued me again. You follow what I'm saying? So it's kind of pulled me into that. And it's
that newness of figuring out that journey, right? Of figuring out that whole process. It's because it's a little different for everything you do. And
I think it is a journey. I think that no matter what your pursuit is, it is a journey. And we're all young at some point in time in our lives. And when you're young, you've heard about these stages of hunters. You want something different. You want the numbers, you want the success, you want it now. And as you get far enough into it, it becomes about something more. I'm as much into the process and the people, the process being the operative word there. I just like the nuances of it. During COVID, a lot of the international borders were shut for a long time. Argentina was closed for 2 years, 2.5 years. And it gave me the opportunity to further explore my own backyard. And to where now I leave Friday. I'll head down to Louisiana, hunt with some folks, kind of go over towards y'all's neck of the woods, hunt with some more folks, chase the blue wings down the real continental blue wing zone along the Gulf Coast, jump up into Canada, spin around, hunt with friends, hunt with locals, hunt with a few outfitters I know, jump over into Maine, Vermont. It's a long, crazy circuitous journey. Jump down into Maryland, then jump over to Illinois, Missouri, and home for Thanksgiving. And so much of that, it's like a drug. And it's not about the birds. It's not about, oh, I want to shoot birds. I want to shoot geese, shoot ducks, shoot swans, shoot whatever I can. But at the same time, I've just found this immense reward in kind of crawling through the different little localities throughout the United States and meeting the real heartbeat of duck hunting in America. It might be the guy that just hunts the same 20-acre beaver pond, or it might be the guy that's got the big club. But I so enjoy seeing and experiencing all the little nuances in real duck hunting culture, which is America owns. We own the duck hunting culture of the universe.
I guess hunting all over the world, how does that compare to other places? I mean, is it just, like you said, I think here in the United States, it's obviously like a brotherhood. And I mean that in an open sense of, it's just a group of people who have this commonality of what they go and chase in the woods together, and the duck camps and all the cool things that are out there around that. How does that compare to other places in the world?
It's a culture. We've got a true duck hunting culture. And I'll say that for the entire United States. And I recently met with a kind of a hero of mine, Dr. Caputh up in Memphis. Has written The Golden Age of Waterfowl and several other books. Has done a lot of deep research in this. And man, I tell you what, the deeper you get into the Mid-South and the South in general, the more profound that real hunting culture becomes.
Absolutely.
But globally, America does have that brotherhood that you're talking about. We may call different, act different, hunt different, may not all get along, but we do share that profound interest in the recreational hunting for waterfowl. That, and this is important, that are the underpinnings of a continental conservation ethos that does not exist elsewhere in the world. And it's Australia, man, they've got some really diehard duck hunters, not many. It is as much like hunting in America as anywhere I've been, from mud motors to duck calls to the Pacific black ducks behave just like mallards with the quacks and the calls and the habitats. And but in the absence of that duck hunting culture, they don't have the science. They don't have the economy. They don't have, that nugget of hunting doesn't benefit federal and state governments financially. It doesn't benefit the non-hunters. It doesn't benefit anybody, but really themselves. And let's admit it, the ducks, but not at such a level that their federal government is willing to spend a nickel or a dime on doing scientific studies, on surveys, on wetlands, on anything. Okay, that's not good, but where it makes you particularly vulnerable as an anti-hunter, anybody can say, well, such and such duck is endangered.
We're done here.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And you can't, and you're vulnerable to that. I'm saying the same thing. Argentina's not going to close this year, but I would just about bet my house that in 5 years, it'll be a thing of the past. They
Wow.
don't have a true duck hunting culture among their own people.
So,
and now they're fighting tooth and nail to preserve commercial hunting in Argentina.
and I guess my question is obviously with the success of what the North American model is. Why do you think that other countries are not really adopting that, or even taking a? It seems like it's either none or it's either what
Well,
we do
it,
here
I
or
don't
Is it
know.
cost? Is
I
it
really,
cost?
that's a great question, Abe. I don't know why they don't have the hunting culture like we do. Let's use Argentina, for example. Or other parts of the world I've been to, parts of remote Africa, parts of, gosh, the Aboriginal people probably in Australia. They don't have a recreational duck hunting culture like we do.
yeah,
History just didn't write it that way, but you better believe there are some locals out there living hand to mouth.
yeah, for sure.
I've been in parts of the world that you've heard the old saying, the only season is salt and pepper. I've been to parts of the world, buddy. If it's something to eat, they kill it
Sure.
whenever it crosses the road.
I think there's parts
Yeah.
of the U.S. like that.
There probably are still. You know
Unfortunately,
what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Not that we need it. I mean,
No,
let's face it.
Sure.
We duck hunters today, and I'm not saying I love to eat duck, and Lord have mercy, do I eat some duck in the course of a year? But at the same time, I don't have to eat duck.
For sure. And duck hunting nowadays is most of the time a pretty expensive sport. The barrier.
You know, several conversations we've had, and I'm just thinking out loud here, Abe, about the why. It is history. The way history was, like to borrow from what you're saying there, Austin, it is at some point in time in history. Think about this: in the late 1800s, mid to late 1800s, a lot of people in the New World up in Memphis and parts of Texas, throughout the United States, they were working. They were working. They might go out and shoot a deer, but think about it. There were back when the market hunting existed, there were guys like us that went out and made their living, same as commercial fishermen or snapping turtles or anything else do today to sell to the market. It was legal. And I've seen it in Utah. I've seen it in Texas. I've seen it in the Mid-South. There began to be, as the railroads came in and sports, primarily wealthy and affluent people with a lot of leisure time, could begin to access some of the wilder places where there were lots of ducks and other wildlife. They began to travel from Boston to Arkansas, from wherever, Connecticut down to Texas, from New York to Texas or Utah, and shoot a lot of birds. Back in the day, that I was talking to somebody about a club around Big Lake, Arkansas, that they used a boat they could pull behind them in the woods, and it would hold about 140 ducks, and that was more or less the limit. They might shoot more, they might shoot less. And back in those days, some of the club members considered any day duck hunting below 100 ducks to be a terrible day, but they had the resource to do it, and there were so few hunters. But what began to happen is the sports, the recreational hunters would show up, and there was a growing conflict because their property or the area they wanted to hunt was being exploited, strip mined by market hunters. And there were people killed, there were fist fights, there were skirmishes and boat burnings and camp burnings and all kinds of nefarious politics on both sides of the equation. And they did what connected people did. They went back to their political budget and said, what are we going to do? We can't get rid of these folks. And so they began to legislate market hunting out of existence. And it really wasn't at the forefront. A lot of the people championed, as I understand it and believe it to be, a lot of the people, the politicians that championed the Migratory Bird Treaty Act weren't really conservation oriented. It was about protecting
their vacations.
Favoritism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But in that act was born a conservation ethos. You follow what I'm saying? It's like it may not have been intended that way, but thank goodness
it started the ball rolling.
With all the habitat loss that we've had. I read something just the other day on a thread that we have 6% of the original grasslands remaining. You know, when U.S. Department of Agriculture could not or would not keep the rental rates equal to what a farmer up in wherever the Prairie Pothole region could get planting crops. They disced under millions of acres of CRP grasslands that were producing ducks just 10, 15 years ago. They're gone. We've got a lot of habitat loss. We've got a lot of hunting pressure because we've got a lot of hunters like ourselves hunting in fewer properties. So thank goodness we've got these safeguards in place. Beyond the federal government, the state governments, the universities, the researchers, we've got Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, Safari Club International, Dallas Safari Club, and a whole plethora of other NGO conservation groups. I mean, we've got we're very blessed in America to have that system, but importantly, we hunters are the driving force for it all.
Very much so.
And that's because we are passionate about having those ducks to go out there and recreationally hunt. That's just not hardly anywhere else on earth.
You said something about Argentina that kind of segued to something I wanted to say or ask. You said, Argentina, you think in the next 5 years will be kind of shut down. You mean as waterfowl, or or the legendary dove hunts, or just as a hunting journey in general?
I pray to God that none of it is, because what you see happening is in a country like Argentina, you've got a lot of people. A lot of the citizens live in urban areas or whatever have you like that, and it's a tremendous amount of natural habitat. It's just a tremendous amount of habitat because there's no duck hunting culture. There's very little relative hunting pressure. But the greenies down in Argentina are not calling for a cessation of duck hunting. They're calling for a cessation of hunting for indigenous wildlife, which is everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason, I think, in Australia I've seen it, in Netherlands I've seen it, and now in Uruguay, which was closed for several years, now reopened, and in Argentina right now, ducks are such a great poster child for that initiative. Because if the majority of the population, if 99% of the population doesn't duck hunt, then what do they see except a beautiful, harmless little bird? They don't see the meals on the table, the food, the connection that we all see in hunting that bird. They just see this pretty little bird that might be in danger, so close it. And from there, you can start to leverage and spin everything else in the closure. So that's what I think.
So that kind of leads into, I was going to ask, what, for people like us who want to kind of start hunting more abroad, what should be kind of a first on the list / bucket list hunt that you're concerned about? Would you put Argentina at the top of the list, like a place we should go now versus 10 years from now?
Man, I don't know. I'd pick one and go with it, and worry about the rest later is what I would do. That's what I did.
For sure.
My progression was extremely simple. I went first to Canada. I think that if you've only hunted your home state or a neighboring state or one or two flyways, there's so much from Maine to Florida to California to Washington and all points in between. There's so much to see. Then you jump into Canada, then you jump into Mexico, further down into Central America. And the coolest thing about that is the game is slightly different. The little nuances in duck hunting, but it's very familiar species. I think that Argentina, the right Argentina hunt is one of the most amazing experiences in the world. And I'll tell you, one of our big up and comers is South Africa. That's a really cool place to hunt. It's become one of my favorite places on earth to hunt. And South Africa could possibly be there for a long, long time, like the rest of hunting. And I'm not saying Argentina's going to close, man.
Sure.
We're taking deposits every day for Argentina.
Sure.
It's just, I just know this. I know that pursuant to a lot of this going on down in Argentina, a lot of concerned outfitters, by no means all of them, but a lot of the real professionals down in Argentina formed a coalition and dug into their own pockets and went out and surveyed ducks in 5 provinces this year. Right after the season, it began August 22nd. I think they're either done or getting done, from what I understand, talking to some associates down there. And basically, the federal government said, okay, here's the deal, guys. Here's the wetlands y'all should survey. And each survey team took a biologist with them to observe and make sure, I guess, wasn't no funny stuff going on. I don't know.
Exactly.
Sure.
And count the ducks and do the surveys, and submitted it to some professionals to crunch the numbers. Then it should be done October, November. And then they'll start tackling the politics of it. And I think it's going to be fine. But it's like I told those guys, I said, I don't think that hunting is going to really persist long-term forever until you can build a meaningful economy around it like we've done in America.
You follow the money.
To where the federal government benefits, to where the local communities benefit, to where most Argentines that have no connection whatsoever to the industry benefit in some way. Mm-hmm. And the ducks benefit and the habitat benefit. You know, sure. It's got to be a deal. You know, hunting is good. We all accept the fact that hunting is conservation. Let me add a word. Regulated hunting is conservation, not unregulated hunting.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be a win-win deal all the way around. They're just having to deal with some stuff right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if we've kind of touched on, places we should hunt sooner versus later, if we want to get out of our backyard and our backyard be in the U.S., what should be our brand new guy? Where should we go? Mexico? Should we go just send it and go to South Africa? I mean, what's the move?
I don't know. The thing about duck hunting is that I've learned is duck hunting is so subjective. The 4 of us go jump in a duck blind, and I've seen this. We've done client surveys for decades. Us 4 guys, 4 clients go jump in a duck blind somewhere in the world that we send them. When we send them 4 questionnaires and ask them a lot of questions to get some good feedback. And it just blows my mind how 4 guys go and sit in the same lodge for 5 days and come back and describe
completely different experiences.
4 different places.
Yeah.
The food, the lodging, everybody gets something different out of it. A lot of our clients are chasing a collection, be it 41. I count closer to 58 because I count subspecies. I've never understood the 41. I understand the 41 because it's a border plate special of species that are obtainable. But I don't understand some of the there's just some inconsistencies that bother me. Maybe it's my biological background, but how can you put a bird like a sandhill crane that's not a bird on a list of 41 and have a blue goose and a snow goose as 2 separate species? They're the same subspecies, but not have the greater snow goose from the Atlantic flyway, which is total different subspecies. So I just break it out into subspecies, and that's what I chase it. And I think, a lot of our clients chase species. Some clients are chasing trigger pulling experiences or something new, greener pastures. And as an old guy now, when I look at some of the stuff I've stuffed around the room and all, it really wasn't a bird. It was the experience. We're all experienced collectors. We're all experienced collectors, And so I guess just take inventory of what do you want to chase and go do it, man. Go do it while it's still here. Go do it. And you don't have to get in a plane and fly 22 hours to Joburg. You can jump in your truck and drive an afternoon.
Absolutely.
And be somewhere different. We still do have a lot of public land. The internet has been social media has been such an amazing resource for making contact. That's how we all met.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Make contact. Have somebody come down and hunt near Galveston when you get your boots on the ground and go up and see what they've got to do. It's so rewarding to share time in the blind with people.
Agreed.
Very much so.
Speaking of that, if anybody listening is from Arkansas, hit me up. Hit me up. Let's trade some stuff out. You come down here and hunt teal. We'll come up there and hunt mallards. So, Arkansas is one of those places for me, right? That's just like, it's like a dog with a bone. I've got to get up there and experience flooded timber and see that whole thing. It's something that's just super intriguing to me to go and do, and to hunt in that history and that culture of what duck hunting is there. But, talk about it though. There's right here to the east a little bit is Louisiana and Mississippi. I mean, those are just great places to go. And then you said move north up into Illinois and Kansas. And I mean, South Dakota is definitely on that list as well. So, you're not wrong. There's plenty of places to do.
Texas is within strike zone of a lot. Let's just take a 12-hour drive. That means getting up at 6 in the morning and stopping at 6 in the evening after lunch. And man, that's a whole lot of U.S. and a whole lot of unique experiences right there in your 12-hour backyard. And kind of what you're asking though, Austin, is kind of like asking me what my favorite hunt is, and the answer's simple: the next one.
Well, that answers that question.
It's the next one.
That completely makes sense. Teal kicks off Saturday, and couldn't be more excited.
And I'm gonna go on the record as saying this is the God's honest truth. I'm gonna say about 7 or 8 years ago, I hunt in Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta. And we have teal. I expect to shoot a few teal on Saturday with some luck. And because the adult birds, the birds, the adult drakes, they start showing up down the south in weeks ago, early to mid-August. And so there ought to be a few around, but I got a wild hair up. Gosh, it's been a while ago. And I left Mississippi, went down to Venice, Louisiana, and hunted 16 days straight, chasing those blue wings across the coast, and watched the whole little migration evolve to where, well, we ain't got no ducks. And we shot a few. And I go down to Venice and I ain't got no ducks, but I got there when they got there. And for 2 days straight, we shot adult drakes, and then moved over a little bit to the west and started getting into some hatchier birds. And then by the time we got over to over in y'all's neck of the woods, not far, kind of on the east bank of Galveston, east side of Galveston, we got into a lot of hens and hatchier birds, was telling me, okay, a lot of the migration's underway, to where we went and watched a field a day or two before the season, and there must have been a bazillion blue wings buzzing around this rice field, and I couldn't hardly sleep at night, wanting to go out. And we got there the next morning, wasn't a bird in the air. They were gone.
Yep.
But they caught that north wind, and south they went. It's like they never existed. But blue wings have become one of my favorite species, period. But certainly one of my favorite times of year to hunt ducks.
Love it. Oh, I love it.
They're easy. They're you just got to be where they're going to be. They decoy. They play by the rules. They're good to eat. They're fun to hunt. And
the weather's very comfortable compared to what it can be.
The weather's comfortable.
If the dog gets his warm up,
it's a great time to take kids because if they fall in, and they're going to, they don't get cold.
Yep.
But what blows my mind is, man, we can be beating the brakes off of them down Louisiana and Texas, and still there's a ship pile load up in Canada and all points in between. They've got a massive population, and I've been blessed to shoot them in September up in Canada and all points in between. And our newest hunt we're developing right now is Guatemala, and holy cow, 20% of the continental population overwinters in Guatemala, and we're chasing them into February and March down there, and it's just amazing. And we talk about a beautiful bird in February and March, but it's just fun. I just love blue wing teal.
I love it's teal opener. Dove. You know about Texas some. Dove opener in Texas is Christmas Day. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a thing.
that's
Even-
right. New Year's Day.
Exactly. I mean, it's huge. I mean, there are tons of people who only hunt dove, and they only hunt dove opener, and it's a cigar sitting on a bucket drinking beer. It's an event. I
Yeah.
care way more about teal opener. Like dove opener's fine if I've got the time, but teal opener. Oh man,
I did miss it. I did miss it this year, not being up in the North Zone. So I've got, teal opens before dove opens for me down here. So I
don't think
kind
we've
of
hunted
missed
doves for the past 2 years, though.
I've hunted
He
doves.
has.
Yeah, I go every year.
He's hit public land opener every year.
Yep.
Did you go this year?
They're not open yet
It
down
hasn't
there.
opened yet for me down here.
It's because you left.
Yeah, I did leave.
I
No,
think
I asked you. I mean, I was talking about it. It would have been, yeah. I mean, that's true. I think it was this past weekend. We were watching duck hunting videos on the TV and talking about like, man, dove hunting would be cool. And I want to go sit out in the field with my friends and it's warm outside and shoot at birds and maybe
Get
drink a
eaten by
beer.
a mosquito.
That's part of it. It's teal season. I mean, last year where we hunted up here, I mean, mosquitoes are terrible. But whatever.
It is
Part
what it
of
This is what it is.
I didn't kill. I think I killed one teal last year, and Austin killed, I don't know, all of them. I didn't
Yeah.
shoot. I couldn't shoot anything last year.
But you have glasses now, so you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, we'll see. I did not get my lesson because that guy had neck surgery.
Oh, that sucks.
so Ramsey.
Point at the
I-
birds and shoot them.
I think you said on another podcast, and if I recall, it was the Meat Eater one. And if it wasn't you, I apologize. Cavender's Greek seasoning.
Oh, absolutely.
That was
me.
you. That's
That
what I
was
thought. Oh, you changed my life. Oh my
Oh,
god.
good.
Holy-
Good.
oh
You're sitting there talking about doves. And before we change the subject, I'm gonna tell you, if I had one last meal type hunt to go on before I die, it's going to be near heat stroke, but a dove hunt in Mississippi, because that's where it all started with my grandfather. I was telling some friends today up in the Delta. That day going out on opening day of dove season, praying to God I don't have a heat stroke before I get my limit. I get so freaking sentimental. I just sit out there. Here's the typical setup where we dove hunt. You meet at 11 o'clock and the head honcho Chuck, we got to go. We got to be there at noon. And I followed him. Gone through that program for, I don't know, the last decade. You show up and there's doves galore. You get out in the field and you shoot one or two, and then you got to sit there and bake in the sun until they come back.
Yeah.
We did that. We sat out there. I had 2 hours into it. I had 3 doves, and at 4 o'clock, my son texted, "Go, it sure is slow." I go, "You want to leave?" He said, "Nope." And I'm gonna say that was about, I don't know. I'm gonna say that was 10 till 4 o'clock, and at 4:30 we were both back in the truck with our limits. It just turned on, bam.
Yep.
Yeah.
And but I sit out there in that sun in my home county, and it's just, man, I just think about all those days. And I almost didn't go this year. My wife said, "You got to go." She said, "You just got to go. You done it with your son." And so I went, and I was so glad I did, because it's a big family outing, and I love it. But get back to Cavender seasoning, and that was a good lead in, because I season my doves with Cavenders and wrap them up in bacon and cook them low and slow on the smoker. That's just, I got to have that Labor Day weekend. It's like Popeye and the spinach.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so
Exactly.
delicious. It's completely changed cooking duck breasts to me. I love it. Love it.
So favorite way, just Cavender's Greek season. sear.
Olive oil, I sear it off. I mean, you
Oh.
cook it slow, but
Absolutely.
sear it off. I mean, I tell everybody as raw as you can eat it.
Just, rare.
Exactly.
And
my tolerance for rare is a lot different than a lot of people's, but as rare as you can keep it. So, as everybody knows, it gets real livery if you get overdone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man,
And when you do that, what I've learned is when you put it in that olive oil with that Cavender's, copious amounts of Cavender's, don't put it in the refrigerator. Just let it sit on the kitchen counter. You know what I'm saying? Just because that oil will get all white looking and gelled up. But
Yeah.
I a couple hours before I put it on the grill, I just let it sit on the counter.
it's so good.
It gets right.
It's
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's changed things for me. I have uncles-in-law, and I kind of turned them on to it. We want to do St. Paul eiders.
Yeah.
Y'all book that, right?
Everybody, we do, and
Yeah.
everybody needs to do it at some point in
Yeah.
time. That is one of the most incredible adventures I've ever been on. Most unlike blue wing teal season
Yep.
opening day that you're gonna find on the universe. And I hope it comes back. They close. It's a small
Is it-
Inuit, 450 Inuits on a rock in the middle of the Barren Ocean.
Is it not open yet still?
It's still not open.
Oh my
They
gosh.
announced in June they were closed, and I was shocked. And I'm just convinced that the Native community's got some funds coming in off of Biden administration or something. That it makes no sense they haven't opened yet. The rest
Yeah.
of the world has,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it'll open sooner or later.
Yeah. So we'll be we'll be getting a hold of you.
It's a cool trip.
Yeah.
Pack your long johns is what
And
I tell
that's
you.
I was gonna ask, like, from a well versed hunter, what are the pro tips for going up there? Because that's like you said, there's teal hunt in Texas, and then there's that place.
With a pair of neoprene 5 mil neoprene waders that weigh what 15 or 20 pounds, you can pack well for that trip with about 40 pounds of gear, just layers.
Just layers,
And waterproof,
Do you have-
windproof. Well, because really and truly, I tell you this, it might be 0 in Anchorage, and it's going to be 20 degrees warmer out on the island because of the Pacific currents coming through there.
Okay.
That's why the birds are there.
Huh.
And but it's the wind and the wet that gets you.
Yeah.
Is there? I don't know. There's everybody on the internet has a different opinion. Is there any gear that you recommend? I mean, I'm sure you have some sponsors, but just like this is the one that has stood the test of time. Like,
Well, I mean, I do have sponsors, but I'm funny about that stuff. I'm not in the advertising business, and
sure,
uh,
that's a
the product I use is the product I've always used and come to believe in. It's just like when we work with these outfitters, we don't just willy nilly any mini miny mo
sure.
Mhm.
grab an outfitter. It's because we've proven them. I've shot Benelli shotguns for I'm gonna say 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and hell yeah, they'll break anything. I can break a ball peen hammer, but that is the most simple and utterly reliable product I've ever bought in duck hunting. It just works. I mean, it does what it's supposed to do. And
Yep.
I don't abuse my guns. Hell yeah, I clean them. I keep them clean. I want my gun to cycle and go every single shot, not most shots, all shots. But it's just an absolutely it's so simple. I'll tell you the story. I've got a really good friend, really good client. He's from out in California, and he's a huge Beretta fan, and he's a very, very good shot with it. And we were hunting in Mexico, and the tide had gone out, and it was this one point in this bay, and they call it Pintail Paradise, and it was just magic. And because when the tide goes out, there's a little drain right here, just a little bit of drain. It's just fresh water, and the ducks can come walk on the mud and drink the fresh water. And we were shooting ducks and having a good time, but you dare not step out of the blind. And I kept sending the dog to pick up, boy, bless her heart, my old chicken dog, she would go out there and picking up those ducks. And I got down to kind of handle her off on one side. I got confident. Oh, it was not as bad as it seemed. And I walked out in front of the blind, and I sunk all the way up to my belly button and fell over, had my gun over to my back like this, fell all the way backwards. And every nook and cranny of that gun was just crammed with mud.
Oh,
And my buddy Richard says, "You're screwed." He didn't say screwed, but that's what he said.
yeah.
And and I handled her out to a few more birds, got them all picked up. And I didn't want to follow me out there, so I said, hold her for a minute. And I got a big old stick, and I was just up to my knees and going out. And I had mud caked up on everything, and I go out and find some water about yay deep. And I take my gun apart, unload it, take it apart, and take the barrel. Thank God it wasn't up too bad up in the barrel, but I took it off and just wiped it all off, just rinsed it into brackish water, took the bolt, took the trigger assembly, took everything out and just bathed it. And the whole time he's yelling, "Just wait till we get back to camp. We can share my gun." And I'm just ignoring him. And I get all the mud off, make sure the pipe's clean again, put it back together. trudge back to the thing, get up, pop a hole in a water bottle and just rinse that salt water off of it. And the whole time he's yammering, man, it's never going to work. You don't need to shoot that gun. Da, 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 da. I'm loading up my gun. And I noticed 3 Drake pintails setting up behind him. And he just pop, 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 pop. And I just reached up and go bam, 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 and killed all 3 of them. Plop, plop, plop. He's like, dude, that's $1 million ad had you videoed. And I said, that's why I shoot Benelli. And that's why I shoot Benelli, because you can take it apart in the field and make this thing work.
Mm-hmm.
And but I absolutely believe in it. And without getting brand heavy, I do like Tom Beckby wax cotton coats, and I love Vormy wool. But I'll sum it by saying this: I really love wax cotton. It's waterproof.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of it. And I love layers of wool. And I'm a layering kind of guy. I've gotten almost entirely away from corporate camo patterns. I've hunted from 20 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle in boreal forest, clear down to Argentina, across the Atlantic over into Africa. And I've just found that earth tone solids are universal. Some camo patterns blend in perfectly to specific situations.
Sure.
I don't want to have 50 coats in the closet. I've got a couple of coats I can put on and wear anywhere in the world and just layer on and off. And I love that. I love wool. My old bald head, I like a hoodie. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. A wool hoodie. And but those are the basics that just serve me well.
Sure.
Leather gloves. I wear leather gloves, and if I'm really hunting a lot of water, I keep the mink oil on them, but I wear leather gloves. That's just I want it to fit tight like a baseball glove. I want that tactile experience. I don't want to wear something heavy and cumbersome. If your hands get cold, stick them in your pocket.
Yep, I have a hard time hunting gloves too.
Yeah,
I use my gloves.
I want to fit skin tight. But I do like wearing gloves to keep your hands from getting chapped. Now I'll take them off and put them in my pocket when I'm pitching decoys and doing something in the water. And I'll carry another pair if we're hunting water and I'm handling a bunch of ducks with char dog. But I wear, that's just me. The leather, the wool, the wax cotton. I think it's just superior to anything else. And have you ever noticed a lot of the synthetic materials available on the market today? And it's universal. It's not brand specific. It's everybody. Those synthetic materials, and some patterns more than others, when you start to get into the magic time, right there at the crack of dawn, when the sun's just coming up and the world's starting to glow anyway, they start to take on an unworldly glow. It's not natural.
Like a sheen.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Natural fiber behaves differently.
Yeah.
And if you can wear a tan coat, a field tan coat, or a OD coat, and just some solid wool or some of those kind of layers, and just get off in the shadows and be still, and they don't stick out. You know what I'm saying? So that's just me. I'm just that way.
No, that makes 100% sense. That was something we talked about was camo patterns versus solids versus your opinion. You covered that thoroughly. So that's cool.
I think you said it best, Austin,
Motion.
the other day when it was like camo patterns are for the person.
I think so.
It's like I wear this because I
stylish.
like the way it looks.
Yeah.
It's stylish.
Yeah.
And I fall victim to it.
And my
constantly.
argument is, why would any of the big brands, why would you release a new pattern every year if it wasn't a style thing? Why would Yeti make more than one different color, different cooler?
Yeah.
Because people like the stuff that's theirs.
Personal preference, style.
Absolutely. So
it all
runs
and I'm
together.
not knocking it.
Oh,
If
no,
somebody's
no.
wearing a camo pattern they like,
For
by all
sure.
means, power on, man.
No doubt.
I'm not judging nobody for nothing, but you asked me what I like, and that's just what I like, man. That's what
Agreed.
think about the generations. My dad and my granddad and my great granddad, they didn't have none of them camo patterns, and look what they did.
We were talking about it the other day. They killed
Red flannel.
Red
flannel and
Exactly.
blue
jeans,
jeans
you
and
know?
red flannel. I mean, if you're deer hunting and stuff, that was the uniform.
Yeah.
And
I think that a lot of and all the hyper marketing that's come down the pipe over the years, and the ultra competitors and all. I think that really and truly what I think you could sum a lot, if not most, brand marketing campaigns as substitute our technology for skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that the world of duck hunting, the world of hunting, humanity in general would just benefit from master the fundamentals. And I promise the rest will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I told I told Jake Latondras, a very good friend of mine and a world class videographer. I told him next time he comes to Mississippi and we film, I said, I want to kill ducks over black pop bottles.
Yep.
He said, why? I said, I did it in college when I couldn't afford decoys. I could afford some decoys, but I couldn't afford enough decoys. Mm-hmm. So I filled them in with pop bottles. And I said, I just like to show a lot of these kids that you don't have to spend $90 a decoy to kill a duck.
Yep.
Just play the fundamentals. Be where the duck wants to be, hide, and it'll be fine. One of my good friends, one of my very good friends, Mr. Jim Cruz, aka the Swamp Warlock, hunts some cypress breaks up in North Mississippi. And it's always like, let's make a deal, kind of like TV show, what's behind door 1 or 2 when you show up, because it's really no telling what he's going to throw out of the boat. I hunted one time up there about 4 or 5 years ago, and he had inherited from one of his late father's friends some of the ugliest, flattest, most non-duck looking first kind of plastic decoy ever to roll off into the American market. They were the ugliest things I ever saw in my life. And we smoked the ducks. I mean, we put them out like you put out decoys. We hid. The ducks didn't know better. They come right in. This would have been like one of the last weeks of season. So they were educated ducks. You see what I'm saying? It's just stick to the fundamentals and go have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was, I think that's the biggest thing, is have fun with it, because if you're going to do it very often, a lot of times it's not going to be fun, in terms of you're stacking, big straps, right? There's a lot of fun. The fun is going to be figuring it out, failing.
I think so.
Finding a mistake, fixing a mistake, learning those fundamentals, and getting to hang out with your buddies. I think that's the biggest thing.
I think that's the recurring theme with us. And I think a lot of folks is getting out with your friends and laughing about some of the dumbest things ever, having a good time. And they're like, well, shit, we didn't shoot any ducks, but all right, cool. I'll see you guys again tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
Just like you said earlier, it's a journey. You know what I'm saying? And that's really, it's not the top of the mountain, man. It's the climb.
No, exactly.
In any pursuit. And I really, I enjoy that part of it so much.
Yep.
Agreed.
I mean, talking about it being, a journey or an experience, I like to think of it, shooting a limit's awesome, but all right, most of those ducks you're going to eat, and you're not going to talk about any of those specific ducks 2 years, 5 years from now. You're going to talk about everything that happened up to shooting those ducks. Those ducks really didn't matter, but those ducks created an experience around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hell of a point, Austin. I've got this tiny little room I keep a lot of mounts in over at camp. It's like, it's like got a TV in the room. It's got recliners, kitchen right here. It's a little living space with the walls just plastered layers deep of dead stuff. But it's funny how you could come in and ask me about anything, any species, any duck, any memento, anything in that room. And as I was telling stories or sitting in my recliner, just looking up and thinking, every single memento, every thing in that room, the story involves people.
Exactly.
Never the duck. I don't remember the duck cartwheeling like a professionally thrown football. I don't remember none of that. I remember the place and the people and the food and how I felt. And that's what I love about duck hunting.
And I should have clarified. I'm saying, you keep mounts as mementos, as you said, to remember the experience, the experience. So your mounting one kind of preserves that, because at the same, I can look at my ducks on the wall and be like, all right, this happened then. This one was Abe's birthday. This hunt was that. But you go shoot a limit. 90% of the time, you probably aren't mounting any of those unless it's just random. So those ducks became table fare quickly. But I can tell you, my teal days last year were phenomenal. But I mean, yeah, they were just blue-winged teal. But I can tell you what we did and all the shit we talked to each other in the blind, and how much we felt, how muddy it was, and it was shin deep, and we were just covered from head to foot by the time we got out of that place. It was great.
I recorded a podcast today up in the Delta with an old timer that had nothing whatsoever to do with duck hunting. We talked about a little small town in the Mississippi Delta, my own county. We talked about blues and hot tamales, and oh my gosh, just this where these cultures collided because of music, because of the blues. And so anyway, we get done talking about it, and the guy said, "You can put that on your duck podcast?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, it ain't about ducks." I go, "But it's for duck hunters." And you put the four of us in a duck blind, teal season, malice season, don't matter what. I can tell you one thing we ain't talking about, and that's duck hunting. What are we talking about? We're talking about the human experience, man.
Absolutely.
Sports and music and history and politics, and man, what better place to solve world problems than writing a duck blind? Because it's all about people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely. And
agreed.
And most of the time, you all have your phone on you, but you ain't on your phone.
Right.
Like that's a huge thing. Just annoys me most times. Everybody's on their phone, and I'm as guilty as the next person. But that's something about hunting, like especially bird hunting. When you're with a group, those phones don't exist. Wife and I are on a deer lease. Yeah. Most weekends out there, my phone lives in the trailer because I've got chores to do, and we got pigs to shoot and all this other stuff. I don't want that thing. I spend every day on it for real job.
Right.
I love just getting away from it.
Right.
And the work and the sunrise and the sunset and oh yeah, shooting the limit's great. Duck hunting's cool.
Yeah. Chasing them.
We spend all our lives doing what we have to do to make a living, and we get just a few moments in a year's time to make a life, and that's really that's the best of times. Yep.
What's something of all the podcasts you've done and as a guest, what's something you've wanted to talk about that others haven't brought up or haven't asked?
I don't know, man.
Does everybody ask that?
I tell stories and I talk for a living, and sure. I just want to talk about what people ask me. I will share this with you because this has been kind of life come full circle on my mind that I've never talked about before, and it's it's funny how life works. I'm young. I'm going to college. First, I want to be a deer biologist. Then I get off into waterfowl bug. I get a degree in wildlife. And honestly, all I wanted to do was work for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, wear a brown uniform, make the world a better place. Have a short 15-year career in federal government as a forester. And up to that point, it felt like this divine purpose. It's like I wanted to go do this, but life just drove me down this. It's like if I put this pinball in this little groove and it just went through one of them puzzles. I said, no, I want to go over here, and boom, I just went to that groove and all the dots connected up to a point. And I was sitting in one of my favorite places on earth after leaving federal government career. GetDucks.com had gotten up. We had clients, we had business, we had brand building. Everything was going good. I love what I do for a living. But I wondered one time, I was sitting on a camp house. The clients were off hunting. I was sitting there enjoying. I think it was my 48th or 49th birthday. And I wondered about that. I said, how did I go from that young guy wanting to be a biologist, wanting to make the world a better place, to now I'm kind of out of it and I'm doing this instead. And where's the purpose? If I believed in that divine purpose pushing me down this trail with purpose from undergrad to grad school, how I wanted to go to wildlife, but I went to forestry for grad school, which led to a job in the federal government at a time. It's very hard for a guy in my demographic to get a job with the federal government, which led to another job, which gave me time to build Get Ducks. But now I'm completely out of that. And I wondered about that. Not too hard, but I didn't worry about it, but I wondered about it. And back in February 2020, at SEI convention, golly, man, Trump was in office, seemed imminent that he was going to get reelected. The economy was red hot, gas was cheap, people had jobs, consumer confidence was high. And that convention was like Mardi Gras. It was festive. And I felt like, wow. So this is what I've been working all these years for. This is what the top of the mountain feels like. Then comes COVID. But at that convention, some guy walks up, one of many, many people that came to the booth at event, and he says, he asked me about yellow-billed ducks and African black ducks. Boy, if I got to hunt for him, let's go to South Africa. And we start talking. He goes, well, I'm not interested in hunting them. I need the genetics. I go, huh? That was Dr. Lavretsky down at University of Texas, El Paso, who approached me and asked me, could I help him collect genetic material on these world mallard genomes. Great podcast, Just a Mallard. It's fascinating information. And so last year in South Africa, I collected a handful of yellow-billed duck. I did a lot of morphological measurements and took some genetic samples and collected the first ever wild harvested African black duck for his genetic studies. And, you know, all the young people that get into wildlife management, you know, if you get a career in wildlife management, it's fun to start with, but you ain't making no money. You know, we all get into it to do the hands-on field work. But if you're going to make a living and feed a family, you got to start climbing the ladder, and it becomes administrative very quickly.
Yep.
And it's funny how, having started off that way, this year, I'm over in Africa and I'm collecting data again. And I managed to collect 76 yellow-bill samples and 4 more wild harvested African black ducks. And it felt good, because here I was 20 years later, hands back on, committing something, not just real science, real freaking science. One of the greatest issues we don't talk about in North America right now, and it's I became aware of this talking to Lavretsky, is some of the talk in the scientific community right now is about the BPOPs, the populations, you know, the duck count. They finally did it for 2 years, and you got this many ducks, and this many ducks, and that many species, and that many. But, you know, in the world of mallards here in North America, we got 2 separate populations of mallards. Starting on the Atlantic Flyway, the state and federal governments and private people started throwing out mallards on the Atlantic Flyway. Well, they didn't go up to the wild populations on North America and get those genetics. They went to Europe and got farm genetics, farm duck genetics. And nobody's saying it, but the genetic material exists the genetic proof, the studies exist to build a pretty credible argument that the reason the Atlantic Flyway mallard population went from 1.2 million 20 years ago to just under 400,000 now is got to do with the fact that they ain't wild ducks. They got these farm duck genetics. They don't know north from south. They don't migrate. They can't go glean wild habitat to live like a wild duck. And those genetics are starting to drift west. You know, you hear a lot of people saying, well, the mallards are the migration's moving west. No, it ain't. Those Central Flyway and Pacific Flyway mallards that you perceive as still migrating have always migrated. There really weren't a mallard migration to start with in the Atlantic Flyway, but those genetics, those bad genetics, old world genetics, are starting to drift into the Mississippi Flyway. Somebody told me that based on a random sample, a Michigan hunter goes out and shoots, let's say the 4 of us go shoot 10 mallards in Michigan. Statistically speaking, 80% of those are those tame genetics.
Wow.
That's scary. That's scary
I
stuff.
think I've heard this before. It's
That's scary stuff, man.
yeah. So the
What's
genetic.
going on here, you know? And so that the I believe as this becomes as agency or agencies plural begin to address this situation, I believe that genetic is going to become increasingly important in future waterfowl conservation, not only in America but worldwide, and have come full circle. Something I've never talked about. I just take a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction in getting to do the fun stuff, sitting there doing my little measurements and taking my little samples and bringing them back and contributing that, you know.
Yeah,
Then,
it's kind of full circle, like you said. Yeah,
yeah.
that's very
And
interesting.
now I just want to do more of it.
What was your take on the full population results this year? Obviously, blue wings up, pintails down.
Yeah, it's and it makes perfect sense. I mean, it makes sense to me. Having gone to Canada for the last 20 years, Saskatchewan was dry as a bone, scary dry. Parts of North Dakota were just unbelievably dry. They had not been able to survey duck populations because of COVID and the whole boundary and closures and all that crap, you know, going on politically between Canada and U.S. and COVID. But they finally got up to do it, and it makes sense that a lot of the duck population is down, and it makes sense that with those populations down, that blue wing are high because there was a lot of late season precipitation in the Dakotas and parts of Canada about the time that the blue wings would have shown up and started nesting. They're later nesters. And so it all makes perfect sense to me. You know, the way our frameworks are set, you know, before those surveys were even done, Fish and Wildlife had already set 6 ducks in 60 days for the Mississippi Flyway. You know, they work a year ahead of it. And if the biologists aren't freaking out that we're over harsting, I don't guess I should, but still, I wish it was a little more in time. If we don't get some wetness, if we don't get some real wetness up in the prairie potholes, I'm wondering if the question is not what the populations look like; it's what the framework's going to look like next year.
Absolutely.
Not this coming season, but the next.
Exactly.
That's going to be the question. And it does worry me, Austin, that we've got a generation. My son's 24 years old. Since the time he killed his first duck right before his 6th birthday, blue wing teal, to now he's never known anything but 60 and 6. What are these hunters that have known nothing but 60 and 6 going to do if we hit a 30 and 3?
Explain 60 and 6 to us.
60 days and six ducks. That's the way the liberal framework under adaptive harvest management. And when I mentioned earlier, somewhere back in the 90s, starting to really get hooked on duck hunting, and the limit was 2, is because it was a 30-day and 3 duck season under a restrictor framework, and there was 2 mallards. Of the 3, 2 could be mallards, and that's why we were shooting 2 mallards apiece in Arkansas. You know, and that's you know, based on the mallard population primarily, the feds set a framework, liberal, moderate, and restrictive. So for the Mississippi Flyway, a liberal framework would be 60 days, 6 ducks.
Finally
45 and 4, 30 and 3.
Yep.
And so that's just you got to ask yourself. And I know I talked to one of my good friends, Mr. Gene Campbell, who's been guiding down in southeast Texas. We were talking about it one time, and when that restrictive season hit 20 years ago, he lost 75% of his clients. I know, talking to one of the chief biologists up in Canada, when they went from 8 ducks to a more moderate season because of mallard counts, they lost 75% of their hunters. And so I asked myself, if based on this drastic drought and lower productivity than normal, if in the 23-24 season we have a restrictive or moderate bag season, what are we going to take a hit? Going back to that duck hunting culture we started with, what kind of hit are we going to take?
Yeah.
It'll
On
weed
the one
out.
hand, there's public land hunters going, oh, I can't wait because there'll be half as many hunters. Well, there are going to be half as many people footing the bill for this stuff. That's the downside of it.
Yep. It'll weed out some of the.
It's just sobering. And you know, right now, man, the western half of the United States is in a bad way.
Yes.
The first national wildlife refuge formed specifically for waterfowl was Klamath, and it is closed. It is bone dry.
I read that.
That's scary. I have not talked to some of my biology buddies out on around the Great Salt Lake. It was bad dry last year. I bet it's dry this year, and that's a very important area for production of Pacific flyway birds. Hell, a lot of cinnamon teal, for example, are hatched right there on the Great Salt Lake. You know, it could get worse before it gets any better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I was reading about Calumet being dry just the other day. It's crazy.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad. You know, California's bad dry.
Got to do something.
It's
just the ebb and flow of it all, right? You know, this is what Earth does.
What's the most?
It is, but it is a natural cycle. I mean, if wetlands didn't get dry, if those prairie potholes didn't get dry, they wouldn't be as productive. They'd be a lake, and lakes aren't as productive as ephemeral wetlands.
Yep.
The problem we got is there's parts of the world up that if it gets dry, farmers just get under it. It's not habitat ever again.
Yeah.
And we started off the conversation somewhere along the way talking about, you know, the American duck hunting culture and how important it is because of the economy we've built. We don't need to lose many more hunters. We need more hunters.
Yeah.
Not less.
That's a hot topic right now, for sure. A lot of opposing views, a lot of opinions.
You know, and really and truly, I'm gonna edit what I just said to say this: the problems facing waterfowl right now are habitat, and we hunters foot the bill for a lot of wildlife conservation. But I think that the problem is bigger than we can foot the bill for. We've got to somehow drag the others into the battle for wetlands conservation. It's just got to be, you know, some kind of excise tax, something has got to happen.
We need to bridge the gap between, I mean, people talk about the New Jersey cat lady who wants to donate to the Audubon Society for bird preservation and sees us as the problem. We've got to bridge that gap. So we're all on the same team here.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. No, it's, you know, I don't kind of understand that because, you know, they want ducks and we want ducks.
Exactly.
What's the problem?
Because they think as being hunters, all we care about is killing things. Like, well, we very much enjoy that, but it's more about the experience, as we've discussed. And if there's no bird to shoot, kind of ruins a big part of our lives.
What if you look at what we do, let's just take the private property segment of hunters, what they're doing time and money wise for habitat that all the public benefits from. Now let's just take hunters from a universal standpoint. You know, the excise taxes we pay $1.5 billion a year going directly into conservation.
Yep.
You know, and it's just when you start looking at habitat, wetlands loss and everything else, it's more than a dwindling amount of hunters can stop. We've got to get every American on board to understand that we want wetlands for waterfowl production. Humanity needs wetland for quality of life.
Absolutely.
We're all on the same team.
We are.
Yeah.
We need to make everybody realize it.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that.
I don't either. I bet we could solve it in a duck blind.
Great compromise. We need a modern day Henry Clay. You know, that's what we need, and somebody who can bridge that gap and bring both these sides together to kind of see that it is for the greater good. But you were talking about the excise tax, but to me, I always think about, yeah, that's a ton of money, but think about all the tax revenue and all the dollars that are generated from people just going to Arkansas. How much money is spent at a gas station and at a Chili's or a McDonald's or a little mom and pop shop that's, got a little restaurant or a little hotel. All of that, a grocery store, all that money that gets spent in those areas that
Gas
goes to keep
stations.
people's lights on, to go and then and on top of that, the taxes that are paid on that, the cost for an out of state resident person to go hunt those things. I mean, it's a lot of money, and it's not just Arkansas. It's people come down here, people go over to you, people go to Florida, they go to they go to Alaska, they go all over the place to do these things, and whether it's ducks or elk or deer or pigs or whatever, right? Fishing, it's all money that goes back into the economy, and got to
Here's
see
something.
that for what it is.
The last number I remember hearing, and it's been a while, was that hunting generates $75 billion in the U.S. economy.
75.
That's a lot of
We've
money.
got a $20 trillion gross domestic product. $75 billion is nothing. $75 billion wouldn't even cover 4 years of New York City public school district budget. I mean, so $75 billion is a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money.
Sure.
But in the grand scheme of things, it ain't nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And you know what the craziest thing is, that these freaking Republicans that are coming after. Here's the craziest thing I've read this week. The Republicans are trying to repeal the Pittman-Robertson Act.
Yeah, I saw. We've seen that.
Because excise tax is unconstitutional. And who is joining them? But now you've got these fringe animal rights and anti-gun wackos champion the repeal of that tax, saying that state and federal agencies are driving gun sales. In other words, they're letting gun sales kind of drive their model for conservation, and it should be not to do with anyway. I'm like, holy shit! Look, if you're if you're a Republican and you're against something that those wackadoos are coming on board with, you're probably in the wrong right here.
Yeah, something's not.
Yeah.
Something
You know what I'm saying?
doesn't
And I hope every one of the guys sponsoring that bill loses the next election they run in.
For sure. It's such
Absolutely.
a stretch. It's ridiculous.
It is a crazy time, that's for sure. Let me ask you this question. How many, is there a continent on this earth that you have not shot ducks on yet?
I haven't been into Asia proper, and I'm really starting to, I'm thinking Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, North Korea, South Korea. That's a part of the world that'd be very interesting to hunt. But I think that because of humanity, because of laws, because of guns, because of ammo, that it probably ain't gonna happen unless I just happen to stumble in and meet, some 4-star general on the North Korean force or something. I just don't think it's going to happen. You start running into like the Philippines, for example. The Philippine duck, which is a part of the mallard genome, is endangered. And there's parts of the world I've been to, not over there yet, but some of the places we've been now, when I start hearing about some of these other, Bahamas is a good example, or Belize was a good example. Hunting may be legal, but you're possessing or holding even a shotgun and/or ammo is nearly impossible or highly illegal. And it's so, but that's one part, that's one corner of the world I really want to get into, is Southeast Asia. I think there'd be some cool species in there, wild mandarins, let's say, or falcated or something along that line. I think it'd be pretty cool to go up in that part of the world and just to see that part of the world with hip boots on and a shotgun. But so far, I've not been able to score anything over there. About the furthest into Asia I've been able to get is more commonly called Eurasia, which would be like Pakistan, Azerbaijan, which is a popular hunt with people. We for some reason that hunt draws clients. I think it's that red crested poacher and just that primitive way of hunting they've got over there. But I've not been able to get further into Asia than that. Mongolia, I did go to Mongolia, north of China. Very, very different hunt. But down into Southeast Asia, I've not been able to come up with anything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, the boys are trying to chase some mandarin ducks on a lake up there in North Texas.
There's been a
Good
couple.
luck.
There's been
That'd
a couple.
be kind of cool.
There's been at least
There's
one.
been a few.
I have a friend who has it on his wall, and we live up here in DFW, and 2 miles as the crow flies from where I'm sitting right now, he shot a mandarin duck.
Wow.
There's apparently some individuals in East Texas who are raising them and releasing them. We hear.
Or they just get out of a park or a zoo or an aviary.
Somebody's collection, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the most popular hunt you book? What hunt do you book? What's top of the list?
Mexico and Argentina,
Yeah.
by far. Those are just the mainstays. Mexico and Argentina. Mexico for the last, since COVID had been selling out years in advance. I talked to somebody this evening. I've got several hunts down there.
I've been eyeballing some of them.
Well, Obregon is probably 80% sold out for 2024. This year's been sold out for a long time. Not to say somebody won't fall out or something like that, but it's pretty much sold out. Mazatlan, we're down to, I think I've got 8 spots. They raised the rates for the first time in 3 years. And it was time, I mean, golly, everybody knows what inflation and fuel and everything else is doing this year. And they raised the rates.
Sure.
And a few people fell out. So I've got 8 spots for the upcoming season, all in March. I'll be down there the first week of March 1 through 4. I've got room for 3 or 4 people if they want to join us, and great hunting dates. But Mexico, cinnamon teal.
Oh yeah.
It's warm.
You just got
you can
him.
bring your spouse, to Mazatlan. That's a lot of pluses to that. It's one thing to tell you if you're a young guy with a mortgage and kids and everything else. One thing to say, yeah, I'm going to Mexico, versus saying, hey, baby, you want to go to Mazatlan?
Yeah.
If she sleeps in or goes get her nails done or gets a massage and you go shoot a few ducks, that's an easy win-win for everybody.
This is the exact sales pitch I've been giving these two to go on one of your Mexico hunts. To the detail.
I'm telling you that we called Mazatlan the honeymoon duck hunt because it is, but we've had at least 24 people literally honeymoon down there.
Yeah.
And even if you've been married for 15 years, trust you me, you're gonna feel like you're on honeymoon again because mama's happy, you're happy, and margaritas and tequila's pretty cheap down there. So
yeah,
that's a fun trip. And Argentina is a mainstay. We've just cut a certain niche. When we got in this business 20 years ago, and a lot of folks were advertised, a lot of folks in our business and lodges and folks advertised in the magazine, it was for discriminating hunters, like Grey Poupon hunters or something. And I'm like, man, I'm not that guy. I'm just a duck hunter.
Yeah.
I want a real duck hunting experience, and that's where after 20 years, we've beaten the bushes and found our flavor of real Argentina duck hunting. Not, if you want a 5-star lodge, I ain't got it. You know what I'm saying? You want to shoot the F-bomb out of ducks and eat real food and have a good time, we got it.
Yeah.
4 lodges worth. But those are 2 mainstays. South Africa is going to be right there with it. It's growing big time because the advantages you've got, it's fun. It's in the southern hemisphere, so our summertime is duck season. You shoot ducks and geese and upland birds, generous bag limits. I'd say comparable to run-of-the-mill Argentina, comparable to lawful limits in Mexico. And the best part is you got a lot of cool species like the little African pygmy goose, the spur-winged goose, a lot of cool birds, and you can get them back for taxidermy. You can't bring birds out of you can't bring birds out of Argentina, period. And that law has been in place for 15 years, but you can bring them back from Africa. So you go down there, you have a great time. It's not terribly expensive. Food, culture, volume, species. You get to bring them back and get them mounted. So
That's neat.
that's probably going to be one of those are probably going to be our three biggest hunts. Yep. And on the North American side, one of the newest hunts I'm most excited about is Guatemala. And I loved it so much. Last spring, it's like I came home and told my wife, if I ever run away from home, I'm probably going to be in Guatemala. I just loved it down there.
Yeah.
A lot of blue wings is what it's going to be, a blue wing hunt, but just fun.
That's neat.
Mexico it is.
Mexico.
I'm
And
in.
you can shoot your cinnamon teal finally.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cinnamon teal or,
And a full, real nice blue wing drake.
oh my gosh.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh! When they're full
No
plumage,
problem.
I mean, because up here in North Texas, unless it's late season random bird, we don't see full plumage. They burn through here.
I'll tell you a Mexican species a lot of people bring home, shovelers.
Oh,
Man,
Hollywood
you ought to see how
mallards.
beautiful those birds are in February and March. They're
I'm a
beautiful
fan.
birds. They're in the same, and the crazy thing is they're in the same genus as cinnamon teal and blue wings.
Mm-hmm.
They're a beautiful bird. A lot of people want to get the teal trio mounted.
Yep.
Trust me, put a shoveler instead of a green wing. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more beautiful mount. They just go together.
We see some. We get late movers or something shovelers, and late end of a season up here, end of January. You shoot a shoveler, they're pretty good looking.
They're
Spoon
nice.
and Crockett. Spoon and Crockett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoon and Crockett.
Hollywood mallard.
Yeah. What's your favorite duck to eat?
Man, I really, really like green wing teal. Yeah, green wing teal, blue wing teal. A lot of everywhere I've ever been that that you kill green wings, that seems to be at or near the top of favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Azerbaijan. We go to Azerbaijan. We're hunting 8 miles from Iran, and we asked to eat some ducks, and that's what they go for. Is them green. They cooked us green wings. They said these are the best. I said I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
It's
that's
a universality there.
yeah.
great. Well, we've done an hour and a half. What else you got?
We have. I know.
And I'm
I
not
feel like
telling
we
you-
covered a ton.
Yeah, we can meet again one day.
Absolutely. Maybe
Hopefully in the duck
Mexico.
blind.
In Mexico.
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Boys, whip out your credit cards.
We
Okay.
go to Mexico.
Don't be
March
scared.
1 to 4. Come on.
Don't be
We'll
scared.
make it happen.
That it's I told you I said I really don't vacation by duck hunting, but my wife loves Mazatlan. I love Mazatlan. I get to go out and shoot ducks for a little bit, then I come back and don't shoot ducks. And by the end of a 3 or 4 day trip, I'm so relaxed you can pour me into a shot glass. I love Mazatlan.
That's awesome.
Mexico is neat.
We all went to Mexico together last year. Abe's gone every year for a while. Wife and I have gone, so we need to tie the duck hunting aspect in.
Agreed.
You need to.
We need to.
Thank y'all for having me on tonight. I've really enjoyed it. And, thank y'all for
It's
being
our
interested
pleasure
in what I
completely.
do.
Man, it's awesome. Such a pleasure.
Yeah,
Such a wealth
absolutely.
of knowledge. It's great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
I'll
appreciate
one of these days I'll get down to Texas and I'm gonna record y'all for duck season somewhere, our own podcast. I'd love to meet and talk. I got some questions for y'all now.
Absolutely.
Let's
Doors
make it
open.
happen.
None of us have kids, and we all have extra rooms. You got a place to
Yeah.
stay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to talk to you for sure.
No, I appreciate it. Thank y'all very much. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the website getducks.com. Go check it out. Start looking now because they book fast and pretty much what I'd recommend is probably take a dart and throw it at the world. Probably going to land on a place that
You got to start
you
somewhere,
got
Abe.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
No matter where it's at. So well, we
Get-
appreciate everybody for listening to the podcast this week. Make sure you subscribe, check out getducks.com and follow us along on social media. Where can they follow you along? Because you're a pretty solid Instagram follow.
Ramsey Russell Get Ducks. One word. Ramsey Russell Get Ducks on Instagram. Duck Season Somewhere podcast. And getducks.com. Or just Google Ramsey Russell.
Yep.
Something will come up.
Get ducks on YouTube. Got a lot of great content on YouTube
Thank you.
as well.
We watched a whole bunch of that this weekend. You know,
yes.
Well, stay tuned because Jake did a wonderful job on Mazatlan, and it's the next to drop. I've really been just getting my date availability sorted before we drop it. It'll probably drop in the next week or two.
Y'all
We'll
heard
look
it.
forward to it.
That'll be something you can show your wife.
That's
Deal
the
done.
pitch.
That's the sell.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
All right.
I love it. Well, thanks everybody for
Such a
listening,
pleasure.
and go check it out. Q Brayley.
Stormwater Creek is the best. Grinch, the captain. Aim, the helper. Jordan, the problem solver. I hope you like Stormwater Creek. Stormwater Creek.